Alright, so in the previous video we talked about some basic cell names, just naming one cell at a time. And remember, we can always modify those names, see what those names are, see all the names in our spreadsheet by going to that name manager on the formulas tab. In this video I want to talk about how you can apply a name to a range of cells. So as an example here, I have a cell called Jan Sales sitting at the bottom here. I can see that in the name box. I have an individual cell here called Feb Sales. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to call this group of cells Jan Sale Details, let's say. So to do that, the process is very similar to how we named individual cells. You just need to make sure you would select that range ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and select those details. And then in the name box, I'm just going to click. I'm going to type the name I want to use, Jan Sale Details. And when I hit enter, it applies that name. We can double check this just like we did when we were doing individual names in the previous video. We can click the drop down. My name is there. There's my January sale details. If I choose that, it goes and highlights that range. So applying a named range is the same way as how you would do an individual cell. There are a few benefits here. So first one is when we're dealing with our formulas, we can actually use that reference that identifies the range rather than, let's say, B2 to B6. Now, this is normally not such a big deal. However, if we get into situations where I'm inserting additional rows, we know that not all Excel formulas are going to update automatically, but names will. So names will expand and contract with the insertion and deletion of rows, which can be really useful if I'm using them in formulas or other spreadsheets, whatever it might be. So using those cell name ranges can be really handy for that. Another situation you're going to see it in is when we deal with tables. If you created a table out of data and you actually give it a table name, essentially it gives the whole range of that table a name, which is very useful when connecting to it from other data sources. So keep that in mind. So one more time here, you select the range, you use the name box, you give it the name you want to use, you press enter, and it applies that name to the range. One more thing before I leave you here, if you click the individual cells, you'll notice the name is not appearing, and that's because you haven't named those individual cells. You've named the entire range, and when I select the range, the name then appears. You can manage these names in the same way you manage individual cell names, and that's on the Formulas tab and using the Name Manager. In the next video, we're going to show you how you can use these names within a formula, and then as a result of that, a lot of functionality can be increased in your workbooks and spreadsheets.